In the previous lesson, we went through a couple of different ways to do some keyword research, and by using the Moz Keyword Explorer, we decided to focus on coffee shops Brighton as our keyword phrase. So in this lesson, we're going to start implementing those keywords into our Rapidweaver project. So let's go over to Rapidweaver, and I've got our fictional coffee shop website open. And what we want to start doing is getting, as I say, those keywords into our content. And most importantly, you want to get the keywords at the top of your content inside of the header tags. So previously we were focusing on the best coffee in Brighton. What we want to do is change this to use our coffee shop Brighton keywords. So let's go to the edit mode and start doing that straight away. So let's start by changing our header to an amazing coffee shop in Brighton. And next up, what we want to do is include the keywords throughout the content as well. So for example, in the supporting text underneath the header, we'll want to change from best coffee in Brighton to focus on coffee shops Brighton. So what we might want to put in here is something more like Unbelievable Coffee is an amazing coffee shop in Brighton. And then we can leave the rest as is. And the other thing we'll want to do is change this button link text to include a couple of keywords as well. So we could say visit our Brighton coffee shop or visit our coffee shop, something like that, just using a couple more keywords inside of the link text. You could also say cafe if you wanted to have a little bit of variation rather than keep on saying coffee shop. That could come across as a little bit spammy. It might not read very well. And cafe and coffee shop, they're kind of interchangeable. So Google is going to be smart enough to realize that coffee shops and cafes, those are kind of the same things. So you could interchange those throughout your site rather than keep on saying coffee shop, coffee shop, coffee shop. We could say visit our Brighton cafe, for example. And that's going to perhaps read a little bit nicer. So let's preview that and see how it looks. And as you can see, rather than focusing on the best coffee in Brighton, we're now focusing on coffee shop in Brighton. So we're saying Unbelievable Coffee is an amazing coffee shop in Brighton. And then we're just repeating that, or we're just reiterating that. You might want to perhaps adjust this text to make it read a little bit better. But obviously we're not really focusing on the actual copy on the site. We're more focusing on how you can get these keywords into your content. So the main principles are that you want to get the keywords that you're focusing on high up the page inside the heading tags. So we're doing that here. We've got our business name that obviously we want a bit of branding at the very top. Then we're getting the keywords in straight away. Coffee shop Brighton. And then in the supporting text underneath that heading, we're getting coffee shop and Brighton in again. And we're getting Brighton Cafe into this link that goes off to our location page. Which actually I've just forgotten, we need to update the link for that. So rather than going to the blog, let's go to the cafe or the location page. Okay, so the header is looking a lot better. We're refocusing on those new keywords that we've chosen. Next, we'll want to update our main content area to again focus on coffee shop Brighton. So let's go back to edit and start updating the header here. So we could say something like visit our coffee shop or visit our Brighton coffee shop. Let's go with visit our coffee shop in Brighton. And then obviously we have a picture of our coffee shop. We might want to actually edit the alt tag for this to, rather than saying amazing coffee, perhaps we could change the file name to a Brighton coffee shop. And the alt tag again, we could say something like coffee being served in our Brighton coffee shop, something like that, just to get those keywords in there. Okay, and then we'll want to perhaps, at the moment we can leave a couple of these headings as they are. We'll focus on those a bit later on, but we will want to update our section where we're linking off to the location page on our site. So here we're saying Unbelievable Coffee in Brighton, so the business name and then where we're located. But really, because we want to focus on coffee shops in Brighton, we'll want to update this header to again use a couple of those keywords. So let's change this header to Brighton coffee shop location or something like that. You might want to word it a little bit more friendly, perhaps like drop by our Brighton coffee shop. In fact, let's do that. Let's actually say drop by or drop into our Brighton coffee shop. just something like that. I know we're kind of repeating ourselves here. We're saying visit our coffee shop in Brighton. You'll obviously want to not repeat yourself, like don't repeat exact phrases, try and make it more natural to read. So again, maybe we want to say drop by our Brighton cafe, something like that, or Brighton cafe location. Just something along these lines, just to get a couple of those keywords into the headings throughout the page as well. Update there, and then obviously you want to update your supporting text to include these new keywords. And our link text here actually is pretty good. We're saying our cafe in Brighton, and as I said at the beginning, we don't want to spam the page. We don't want to keep on using coffee shop, coffee shop, coffee shop. Make it more like an actual human has written this, rather than just trying to target a search engine bot with keyword spamming throughout the entire site. You know, if it reads better to say our Brighton cafe, then do that. Or if it reads better to say coffee shop, then do that. But just try and make it read more naturally. Don't focus too much on spamming all of your content with these keywords that we're focusing on. So let's go and preview and have a look at that. So we've obviously updated our header there. Now we've got visit our coffee shop in Brighton. So again, we've got the keywords we're focusing on at the top of the content inside the header tags, and especially important inside of the H1 and the H2 tags. Next, throughout the content, we'll obviously want to update this to include coffee shop and Brighton, and we've done that in one location here where we're saying our Brighton cafe location and our cafe in Brighton. So again, we're getting those keywords throughout the content. I keep reiterating that, but it's really important to make sure that your content is good. Make sure it's including those keywords, and make sure you're doing it in a human readable way that doesn't sound spammy. That's really important as well. So before we move on to another page, we want to remember that we need to update our browser titles, our meta tags and stuff like that. All of the stuff that you don't actually see on the page, we need to make sure we're updating that meta information behind the page. So let's open up the page inspector. Go to the first tab here, and we need to make sure we're updating our browser title, because again, we were focusing on best coffee or amazing coffee in Brighton before. Now we'll want to focus on a Brighton coffee shop or coffee shop in Brighton. So let's make sure we are saying coffee shop in Brighton, and then we've got our business name here. And then obviously we're going to leave the folder name as it is, because this is the home page. We want it served as the first page that people see when they visit our site. The other thing we might want to do is update the meta tags. So again, make sure you're using coffee shop and Brighton throughout the description here. We are already doing that. That's not too bad. We're saying Unbelievable Coffee is a cafe located in Brighton. So that's pretty good. We can leave that as is for this page. So let's move on to another page, because as I mentioned, we're going to be updating a couple of these pages in each video as we carry on through this series. So let's start off by updating our cafe page, or our location page. So as you can see here, there's no content in the header, and that is because we are using an extra content area in the Voyager Pro theme. And as you'll remember, we need to add the extra content stack onto each one of our pages. So let's go to the cafe and open up the library and search for extra content and drop that in. And then next we'll want to add a header, and we'll also want some text. So if I just preview that quickly just to show you that that works, there you can see we've got the header and the text. So back to edit. On here we'll want to make sure that this is a page subtitle at least, or a page title, depending on your theme and the way your page is laid out. We already have an H1 at the very top of the page, so I think an H2 is more appropriate here. And again, what we need to do is incorporate those keywords, or that keyword phrase, into the header here. So because this is the location page for our site, we can literally just say a coffee shop in Brighton, or our Brighton coffee shop. Or perhaps we don't even need our, we can just say Brighton coffee shop. And then in the supporting text here, you'll want to use those keywords and the phrases. So I'll leave those up to you, because obviously it's quite time consuming to write out all of the copy for an entire site, and that's not really what we're focusing on. We're really focusing on where you need to get these keywords into your pages. So let's preview that just to make sure we're still okay. So yeah. And again, if you're unsure of how your page is reading, or if you're worried about where you're putting these keywords, stuff like that, go and preview your site in Safari by using Command P, and then disable the styles. And then have a look and see how your website reads. So here we're looking pretty good because we're saying Unbelievable Coffee is a Brighton coffee shop. So we've got those keywords right at the top of the page. So that's reading pretty good. And then obviously you'd have those keywords in the text here and maybe a link off to something else that again uses those keyword phrases. So let's hop back to, first let's re-enable the styles and hop back to Rapidweaver. So next on this page, currently we're just saying location. So that doesn't really mean anything to anyone actually, because what we want to do is actually give them the address and say where we're located. And we're already doing that if you look in the footer area. So we could perhaps just copy a bit of this code and paste it into our page for now. And let's actually do that. So let's go to Edit. And here we have it in the Body tab. And if we scroll down here, we can actually just copy a bit of this text like so. And for now, we could just add a new HTML snippet and paste that code straight into there. And have a quick preview, see if we need to update anything. So here we're saying location, then we've got the business name. So we might want to update those headings. We probably want to say Unbelievable Cafe in Brighton, and then we have the address. So let's go and do that. So what we could do is actually get rid of the heading in here and say something like that. So again, we're using one or two of the keywords in the subheadings of the page. So Unbelievable Coffee in Brighton, then our address, and the opening times and a map. So that's looking a lot better now. Previously we just said location, and that didn't, as I say, that didn't really mean anything to anyone. So a lot better. Finally, we have a cafe gallery here. So if we go to edit mode, maybe we would want to be, instead of just saying cafe, you could just say gallery, or you could say coffee shop gallery, something like that. As I say, try not to be spammy, but do try and get the keywords in. So I'm actually going to say a coffee shop interior, something like that. So again, we've got a couple of the keywords into one of the headings. And then for your photo gallery or whatever other content you've got here, you could update these to make sure the caption, for example, is not only descriptive of the image, but also using some of those keywords and phrases in all of the content throughout your site. So you could update this caption and just give it a quick description saying, we serve amazing espresso in our coffee shop. And obviously I'm not going to go through and do that for all of these images. It's a bit boring for you to watch. You get the idea. And you can see here we've updated the caption for that image. So you can do that for the rest of your images or your content. I'm just really trying to drill home, get these keywords throughout all of the content on your site. Don't only focus on the headings, get it into the content, make it readable, make it sound natural. And finally, as with the homepage, we need to remember to update our URLs, browser titles, and meta tags. So right now we're saying amazing coffee in Brighton at Unbelievable Coffee. So perhaps we want to say Unbelievable Coffee is a coffee shop in Brighton. And then the folder name or the URL path for this page, again, we might want to say Brighton Cafe or Brighton Coffee Shop or Coffee Shop Brighton. It all depends on what makes sense for your page. And in this case, I think Coffee Shop Brighton would be perfect. So what we'll say is Coffee Shop Brighton. And that will be our new URL. So it will be rapidweaverseo.com/coffee-shop-brighton. And that is really important because we've got the keywords in the browser title, the URL, and now throughout the content. And finally, as I mentioned, we mustn't forget the description meta tag. So here we'll want to add a nice description about this page and include the keywords again. So let's do that now. So I've just come up with our Brighton coffee shop is located in Ship Street. We are open weekdays 7 to 7 and weekends 10 to 5. Just whatever, you know, it's not that important what I've written in here, but just to give you an idea that, again, I've used the keywords, but I've done it in a non-spammy way. I've actually described what they're going to find out about on this page. So I think that just about covers both the home page and the cafe location page. Before we finish up, I wanted to go through a couple of different techniques or a couple of different ideas that might be appropriate to your site. For ours, we have our title here. Now this is obviously our business name. Currently it's got the word coffee in, but your business name might not have one of the keywords that you're trying to target. So instead of having your business name in the first H1 title, you might perhaps want to target the keywords. So perhaps you would want to say a Brighton coffee shop or coffee in Brighton as the actual title for your site, and that might work a little bit better for you because you would be getting some of your keywords higher up and as the first content on the page inside an H1 tag. So you can do that simply by updating your site title in the general settings. So for our fictional coffee shop, we could actually say Unbelievable Coffee in Brighton. And that would give us an additional keyword inside of the site title. So at the very top of the page, we're going to get another keyword. And for our site, I think that would be okay. It kind of makes sense. It maybe reads a little bit long. It doesn't look so nice, but we might get some better SEO results from that. So that's one thing that might work a little bit better for your site. And the other thing is on the URLs. Currently we just have one cafe for our fictional business. However, as I've mentioned previously, you might have a couple of different locations, or you might be wondering, how should I incorporate the keywords into sub-pages or into multiple pages that are under the same folder? Well, for example, here we could have /coffee shops and then /Brighton. And then perhaps if you have one in London as well, you could have another page that said London. Something like that. And then you're getting the keywords, and you're getting the keywords into the folder names, so into the URLs, but you're keeping it all nicely organized. And your URL structures are going to be a lot better if you do it this way, rather than having everything at the top level. It's kind of nice to be able to drill down and say coffee shops /Brighton /London /Edinburgh, whatever. It will allow you to more easily keep control of how you're using those keywords in the URLs because you're using the folders. It's more easy just to change the folder name. However, for our fictional business, I'm going to just leave it as Coffee Shop Brighton because I know that we've only got one cafe, we've no ideas of expanding anytime soon, and keeping things as simple as possible, keeping the URLs as simple as possible is going to be a good thing. So before we finish up this lesson, let's publish all of our changes to the server and make sure we're still looking good in the browser. So let's visit our site. And here we can see the changes have applied. So we've got an amazing coffee shop in Brighton. We've got our updated titles and our updated content here. And if we visit that, there we can see our Brighton coffee shop, and we've got Unbelievable Coffee in Brighton. So again, we're getting those keywords into the content, into the headings, into the URLs and the browser titles here as well. So hopefully in the last couple of lessons you've learned how you can do a bit of keyword research and find out which keyword phrases you might want to target instead of the ones you think you want to target. And you've also learned how you can start to incorporate those throughout your entire site. So into the URLs, into the browser titles, into the meta tags, and also throughout your page content. And it's important to do that for all the pages on your site. Obviously, we don't have time to do every page in this video, but we'll continue updating all of the content on our site throughout the rest of the series.